Hey everybody, this is Stelly FD with Closer, and in today's video, we're going to talk about how do you know as a salesperson if a sales call went well, if it was successful. How do you as a sales manager evaluate sales calls of your sales reps? How do you listen to a call 20, 30, 40, sometimes 60 minutes long? How do you summarize if something went well or not? I'm going to teach you a very simple technique to do so. So here's what happened earlier today. I was talking to a startup that was building fairly complicated technology to do voice tonality kind of analysis, as well as body language and facial expression analysis to help sales reps know if a call or a sales meeting went well or not, based on the level of engagement, boredom, excitement that the prospect would communicate through their facial expressions or through their tonality, right? So they would analyze all this data to hopefully be able to tell sales reps how well or bad they are doing and what to change and improve. And I was giving those guys advice, and they asked me this very simple question, which is, Stelly, if we wanted to coach sales managers to be better at evaluating sales calls for their reps, or if we wanted to tell sales reps if a call went well or not, how do you, Stelly, evaluate a sales call? When do you know that it went well, and how do you know it went well? And here's what I told them. And after I taught them my framework and my principle, I thought, well, shit, I've never taught this publicly, so maybe I should create a little video and share it with the world. Hopefully you'll find it useful. So here's what it's not, right? It's not going to be how, how likable the conversation was, or how excited your prospect was, or how much rapport you had with a prospect. A lot of times sales reps will misinterpret how nice of a conversation they had, or how likable the conversation was, or how much in common they had with a prospect with how well it actually went. Like, was this a successful call? Has nothing to do with, did these people really like me, or do I really like these people? Not to say that liking each other isn't helping, because it for sure is. Not to say that being alike each other, having rapport, isn't helping, because it does help. Not to say that these things are not contributing factors to a good call, but they are not the deciding factors for a good sales call or a good sales conversation. How much we laughed, how much you loved me, how much I loved you, how much we had in common, all these things are really nice, but they're not essential. So what is essential? Just two simple steps. The first thing, foundationally, is the beginning and the middle of the conversation. And there, really, it's all about the engagement level that your prospect has with you and you have with your prospect. There's two simple ways to gauge the engagement level. One is the quality of the answers they give you to your questions. The second is the quality of questions they have for you and your service and your product, right? So you as a sales rep, if you're doing your job right, and we've talked about this oftentimes, and I've written about this and we'll link up to it in the video show notes, you need to first qualify a prospect, right? You need to ask all the questions necessary to truly understand your prospect, understand their needs, their desires, their problems, their challenges, their constraints, understand their situation, to be able to make an assessment if your product and service is right for them, if they should buy your product and service. That's step number one. Then step number two is to figure out if they are going to be a good customer for you. Do they have the money, the budget, the decision-making process? Are they going to be a reference? All that good stuff. So can I help them, and can they help me? Now, when I ask you all these questions while I'm trying to qualify you, the quality of your answers will matter a lot on how well the call is going, right? Quality means both, are you telling me things that, that tell me that you are a good, that you could be a good customer, that you could be a successful customer? Are you giving me data and information that tell me that you should purchase our product? But also, are you giving me that data in detail? Are you giving me that data and that information in an authentic, trustworthy way? Are you giving me that information in a willing way, like excited to explore with me if this is going to be a good fit or not? Or do I have to fight for every little thing? Is the relationship really, really tough? So that's the quality of answers. But then I want you to high quality of questions as well. You as a prospect should be evaluating me. And the thoughtfulness you come into the conversation with, the quality of questions you have to me as a vendor, as a potential provider of software or services, that quality of questions matters a lot, right? Are these questions really well thought through? Do they show me that you are an educated buyer, that you're a buyer that has done a minimal amount of research? Are you a buyer that understands their own buying process? And are these questions really well prioritized? And are you asking important big picture questions first and then you go into the detail? Or do you seem to be all over the place, zigzagging, asking me all kinds of questions that are not really relevant for your situation just because you read an article about this stuff? Do you seem to be defocused? Do you seem to be lacking clarity on what you need and how you're going to purchase and what you are going to do with my product or my service later on, right? So quality of answers of questions, the way you answer my questions and the way you ask your questions, that tells me a lot on how well a sales call is going at the beginning and the end. But that's just the foundation of the conversation. The thing that ultimately will judge a sales call going well or poorly is going to be the end of the call. The end of the call is the most important part of the sales call, right? And in the end of the call, based on two simple things, I will know how well the call went. Two simple things are this. How clearly defined are the next steps we're going to have to take, and how excited are you, how eager are you to take these next steps, right? So let me break this down in more detail. The beginning of the sales conversation is all about introducing each other to each other. The middle of the sales conversation is all about exploring if there's a mutual fit, asking questions and answering questions, learning about each other, filling in the blanks and the details to truly understand, can we work together? Should we work together? Is there a mutual fit? The end of the sales conversation is all about conversion. Conversion means next step. How do we take all this information we've gathered and how do we put this into action now? How do we convert this into the next phase of this relationship? There's three sub-steps that you need to think about when you think about next steps. One is, how well defined are the next steps, right? How much clarity do we have on what needs to happen and in what sequence in order to make this deal happen? I've taught this many, many times before, the virtual close, asking the question, what will it take for you to become a customer of ours? And then when they give you the answer, following up with more and more follow-up questions until you arrive at a future time when they are a customer. What will it take for you to become a customer of ours? Well, we need to take this information back to the team. Cool. What happens next? Well, then we jump on another call with you and we ask some more questions. Makes sense. If I answer those to your satisfaction, what typically happens next? Well, next, we want to do a pilot with you. All right, let's explore the pilot. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Once the pilot goes well, what happens next? Well, then we would want you to go through procurement. And then we would want you to go through legal. And then are we in business? Yes, then we are in business. Cool. Now we've laid out all the steps it takes from this moment in time to a future where you are a customer of ours. The better the next steps are defined, especially, not 3 months from now or 9 months from now if it's an enterprise deal, but really the next 4 to 6 weeks, the better defined the next step are, the more detail we have, the more clarity we have on what next steps we have to take, the better the sales conversation went in terms of how likely it is for the sales conversation to turn into a customer. And then their eagerness to take these steps, their excitement level to take these steps, their urgency to take these steps. I could have all the steps well laid out, but if I have no urgency, no excitement, no eagerness to take these steps, if everything else is more important in my company right now, I have 100 projects that have priority over yours, over this specific one, it didn't go that well. This sales call isn't as promising and the chances of closing the deal are not as high, right? So having well-defined next steps and having a high level of eagerness, urgency to take these steps immediately, right? Priority on these next steps, taking them with energy and with conviction and with speed. Those two things are really the most important things in order to judge how well did this sales call go. And then, as a side note, obviously you want to see these next steps. Are they a good fit for your selling process, right? That's their buying process. Their buying process needs them to take these 10 steps before they make a purchasing decision. Now you have a sales process. You have a sales model, a business model in your business. Does the way the buyer wants to buy map with how you want and how you can afford to sell? And if there's a good fit, right? If you're selling a product that costs $5, right, lifetime access, and this buyer wants to have a 3-year buying process, there's not a good fit in terms of, they might have a high level of clarity on what the steps are they need to take, and they may have a high eagerness to take these steps, but there's a bad fit here because the way they want to buy doesn't match with how you want to sell. But ultimately, summarizing all of this, if you want to know, if you as a sales rep want to know at the moment you hang up the phone call, how well did this sales call actually go? How do I judge this entire conversation? Do I judge it based on how excited they seemed, how happy of the people they were? Do I judge it on how much they liked me and how much alike we were? This call was really awesome, it was really positive. So do I say this was a success, or how do I judge if something went well or not? Here's how you do it. You listen to the end of the call and you ask yourself, how clearly defined are the next steps, and how urgent and eager is the prospect and us as the vendor to take these next steps? If these two questions are answered with the next steps are incredibly well defined and both sides are incredibly eager to take them, your sales call was a 10 out of 10, 5 stars, great success. If there's anything less than very well defined next steps, very eager to take them on both sides, the sales call wasn't as good, or potentially could have been a massive failure, although people liked each other and it was a pleasant conversation. I hope this was useful and helpful to you, this framework. I'm happy to hear from you. If you have more questions on this or anything else related to sales, just send me an email, stelly@close.io. And if you haven't yet, make sure to go to blog.close.io and subscribe to our blog twice a week. Highly tactical and practical advice for startups around sales and growth. Until then, let's go and get them.